Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. We're back. I'm your host, Kenny Bedwell. Before we jump into things, first off, huge achievement unlocked or whatever, I guess a thing I could check off on my LinkedIn profile. I don't know. The podcast, Cash Flow Positive, made the top 100 on iTunes for the entrepreneurship category. So, which is awesome. So I'd like to thank my three listeners and my mom for listening and helping me get there. I'm just kidding. Thank you everybody for listening to the show. It's awesome that it's been in the top 100. Didn't think anybody would want to listen to me, but says the opposite. So anyway, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me. And my wife was literally shocked. So so thank you for listening to the show, and I will try my best to provide as much value as possible in future episodes. Now that I know that people are actually listening. All right. Oh, it's a forever ongoing joke. But anyway, I guess I can put that in my LinkedIn profile now, top 100. But anyway, I don't really care about LinkedIn. But okay, let's dive into the episode. So we're going to talk about how to buy deals out of state. Now, whether you're buying short-term rentals or even long-term or any type of real estate asset, buying deals away from driving distance from you can be scary. Now, that's kind of what I mean by buying out of state. Obviously, there's some states that you might border up to that you could drive across the lines and be there. What I mean by this is literally like your property is a flight away from you, or a couple of flights, or a flight and a drive, but it ain't close, right? And if there's an emergency, you can't go there and be there in an hour or 3 or 4 hours. It's a good distance away. So how do you get the confidence to actually pull that off and to you know be successful with that? What are the right ingredients or the things that you need to do that? That's what I want to talk about today, sharing my experience and also being able to help a lot of clients who do this all the time. Once you do it, the really crazy thing is it's really not that hard. And I think you look at it and you're like, oh, that wasn't as difficult or challenging as what I thought it was going to be. And it was really just a limiting mindset. And so the biggest thing that you need to think about is when doing this is buying out of state and that fear of things going wrong and you not being able to handle it. That is a limiting mindset belief. You can do it. It's not that challenging. Okay. You just have to have the right key ingredients, which we're going to talk about, in order to pull it off. And in the next episode two, in part two of this, I bring in someone who's bought several properties out of state, actually one of my clients. And she's buying STRs all around the country in random diverse, literally in the corners of the country too. Like it's pretty crazy. Maine and Florida and other places, Texas. And you can hear her story and how she does it. But you'll notice some key similarities to the top points I'm going to talk about too, and how it just makes sense for her to buy out of state. And for most of you, it's going to make sense, investment wise, like number wise, to buy out of state, but you just need the confidence to do so. So let's talk about it. Let's dive into it. And this, you might have already bought out of state, and this might be thinking about other markets that are further away. And so it all ties in together. And so first off, the first key ingredient that I have listed here is connecting with the right team. Okay. In order to buy out of state, you have to have the right team in place. And I'm going to break this down into different segments because you have an acquisitions team and you also have an operations team for short-term rentals, right? So when I mean acquisition, you have a lender who can lend obviously in that particular state and can get things figured out quickly and knows how to close and deal with some of the nuances. You also have a realtor. That's a big one too, that understands that market, especially for short-term rentals or whatever you're looking to buy for real estate. And they know that particular market and have good resources and recommendations. Okay. Setting yourself up for failure out the gate is working with someone who doesn't have a lot of experience in what you're trying to do. So, for example, using a realtor who isn't very knowledgeable with short-term rentals, it leads to problems. And so usually when I'm interviewing realtors, some of the first questions: do you own any short-term rentals in the area? Do you manage any? Do you have recommendations? Normally they'll have like a cheat sheet or a network, basically their network of like cleaners and handymen and maintenance people and photographers and so on. And if they don't, probably wouldn't use them. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because, if you're going to have to find these people, and if they don't have in-person recommendations, you're literally just going off online reviews or, like maybe social media. And it's hard to feel good about that. Whereas like if someone's like, look, this is the go-to, or these are the go-to cleaners, or the go-to people I use, or the contractors I personally use, give them a call, tell them I told you, whatever, like, oh, you're working with Debbie or whoever your agent's name is, and they're going to take care of you. There's a better probability of them taking care of you. Now, it's not guaranteed. Obviously, it's somebody else's word, a realtor's word, which take that how you will. But it's going to hold a lot of weight. And when you call that person, you're going to feel a lot more confident, and they probably are going to be really good. And that's what you're really looking for. So, understanding working with the right agent, I think, is one of the cornerstone pieces to being successful with buying out of state, in my opinion. Okay. I help people buy out of state all the time. But I tell every single one of them, you need to work with a good agent. I can connect you with a good agent, but you need to work with a good agent regardless if you're working with me, because there are certain things, the boots on the ground, that I can't do for you that they can. Okay. I can run numbers and analyze and look at what amenities you need to add, but that boots on the ground, like going there and going, hey, you know what? The pictures on Zillow or Redfin don't really tell the full story here. That's what you need. Okay. And that's really the cornerstone piece to pulling this off successfully, and the right first step, working with a good realtor. All right, next. I did mention lender. This is really important. And I know this is going to sound, I'll give you two instances where actually working with the right lender who knows the markets, and I would say knows the markets. Let's talk about knows the market from a lender perspective. What I really mean by that is they've done loans in those areas before. Okay. Same thing with a realtor. It's not they've sold houses in that area before, but they've done short-term rentals. And it's the same thing with a lender. So in some vacation rental markets, like in Branson, Missouri, or in the Smokies, for example, they have these types of properties called PUDs, P-U-D. So I forgot what they stand for. I just brought it up and didn't do my research on. I forget what they. But basically, a PUD means that you own the physical structure of the house, but you don't own any of the land surrounding it. Like it's literally like you own like the structure of the house and the little plot. Not, and I say plot, but it's literally like the land underneath the structure, and that's it. Like all the land around it, like you don't own that land. It's either part of the subdivision or part of like whatever. But you don't own that land that's surrounding it. A lot of people are like, well, why would I do that? In these markets where they're like subdivisions of short-term rentals, and they all like they're either on the side of a hill or maybe on the side of a lake, or I'm thinking about Branson and the Smokies. There really isn't a whole lot of land, usable land, that people would want, like acreage or anything like that, because it's just like it's on the side of a hill. It's like, and you just have your house right there. Or it's like in a concrete jungled area of other short-term rental properties, like right next to each other. And there's really just not a lot of room in between them. Whether those are good investments or not, in your opinion, I like, obviously you can guess what I think about those, but the reality is they exist. Okay. And not every lender understands them. The other example I was going to give are condos. Okay. Condo lending is a little bit different, especially if they have some rules and terms in the condo tell, or whatever the building. And so you need to work with lenders who understand those rules and things for the PUDs or the condos, or in some of these other markets where there's other types of weird zoning things that might restrict the type of lending you can do. I've had a couple of clients who've gone into these, and their original lender they wanted to use was underwrote it and everything. And then when they got to under like the final approval, they're like, oh crap, this isn't a PUD. Like this isn't traditional for us. We can't do the normal lending we do on something like this. And they were like, crap, what do we do? And so thankfully I knew a lender who understands this and has a particular product for this type of property. And so we were able to get them in with them, and everything worked out. But this stuff happens. And so you want to use a lender too that also is familiar with this market and familiar with the types of properties or short-term rentals in particular in this particular market. Most areas aren't going to be crazy. They're going to be very straightforward. But if you have a lender, oh, it's my first time, but I'm licensed in this state, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence, right? And so it's about experience. You want to work around experienced individuals, because that's how you're going to get the best results. Don't be someone's guinea pig. All right. So I've started, because we have so many clients we're helping and referring out people. I have people all the time reaching out to me asking, hey, Kenny, I can help your clients too, and I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't know how you work. And I will try individuals on my own properties, and sometimes they suck, and it's like, well, I'm really grateful I didn't refer them out to my clients because this was an awful experience. And so it's the same thing with lenders. It's the same thing with realtors. It's the same thing with designers and photographers and so on. We've got to use people who have experience. And if you're going to buy out of state, if you're going to take that risk, and overcome that fear and that thing I talked about at the beginning, of just like, the not just the fear, but the limited mindset of buying out of state. You work with people who are experienced, because that will bring you peace of mind, and they're just rinse and repeating, meaning taking care of you, then they're moving on to the next person, then the next person. They've done it over and over and over again, and it's nothing they haven't seen yet, and you just keep moving through. I love working with people like that. It's so much smoother. Okay, so acquisition team is lender and realtor. All right, now we transition over to the actual, like, you close on the property. That's great. I will say that, once again, these people, you have the right acquisition team, they're going to connect you with the right contractors and, the right people, boots on the ground you need to get and execute on the right property. But now you have the operational side. Okay. And there's three key individuals you need to have that are your A team in any market for operations to pull it off successfully. Three. And they might be companies. So think of company, individual, same thing. But that's A-rated cleaner, an A-rated handyman, like fast, like be able to get there on time and everything. Not just, oh yeah, I can take care of your property, but then they don't show up for like a week. Yeah, that ain't gonna fly. We need someone there. Okay. And then the last one that not a lot of people talk about are someone who can, a quality person. So a third party that can come in maybe hourly, once in a while, okay, and check on the property. And when I say check on the property, just make sure the cleaners are doing a good job every now and then. Make sure that all the light bulbs are working. The TVs have remotes in them. All the TV remotes are there. I think just like little things, like the grill is clean and taken care of. The oven is inside the oven. Just like little things on top of the fridge isn't dusty. The ceiling fans aren't dusty. Like things like that. Checking smoke detectors and alarms and fire extinguishers and things that, game boards. I can't tell you how many times, like, someone's like, "Oh, Kenny, we wanted to play Scrabble," and like half the pieces were missing, and you're like, "Great, let me order another Scrabble game." It's like, you'd rather know that before the guest finds out for you. Don't let the guest be your quality control person. Okay, bring in a quality control person. So a lot of my properties, I try to find cleaning companies that have these additional add-on services, because they'll have like the independent cleaners, because they know this stuff, right? They know that quality is really important, and you can bolt on different services. So I have a cleaner company where they come and they clean, and then they have another person come through and they do a supplies check, and they also do my supplies and stuff, like restocking supplies. And they also check things. They have a whole checklist, and I gave them a checklist because they were like, "Oh, here's ours," and I was like, "Well, it's missing X, Y, and Z," and so we added it to the list. And they go through, once a week or once every other week. In the summertime, we try to get there, at least every other week. In the wintertime, once a month is fine. And they just go through and they check everything. And what that does is that gives me so much peace of mind. And also it cuts back on the messages I get from guests about potential problems. I rarely have problems. I'm going to start knocking on wood through all this. So I rarely have problems with my hot tub, with, just like other, like the TVs and the remotes and the lights and all these other things that might have issues. I don't get that many messages because I've got somebody who kind of takes care of it proactively rather than reactively. All right. And that's where the stress comes from owning out of state, is when you have to be reactive to, oh crap, I'm in the middle of putting my kid down for bed, and I live in, San Francisco, but my guests in Tennessee or in Kentucky or, Maine is complaining about there's no heat. Like crap, and that stuff can happen, and it frankly will happen. Who do you got? Who's your first call when that stuff happens? That's who you need to have, because the reality is you're not going to fix it. Somebody else is. And you got to have the right people in the right seats in order to pull that off successfully. If your handyman, if your handyman is there and he's like, yeah, I'll be able to get to it in a week from now, that's a problem. That ain't going to work. That's not an STR handyman. It needs to be someone like, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. Or if it's an emergency, I'll be there in an hour. Now, they're not cheap. Okay. And that's something you have to understand and be willing to accept. Any STR cleaners, STR handyman, quality people, they're not cheap. And if you can find someone cheap, awesome, but just make sure the quality is there. I mean, I find myself, we have to overpay for things sometimes, right? But the cash flow is there. It still makes sense. I mean, I remember one time I had a washing machine break. And I was like, great, like this, like, what am I going to do? And the guests were staying there. They need to do their laundry. I had to buy and expedite ship a new washing machine. Okay. So that was already expensive. And then I had to get rid of the old one. So I had to have the guy come in then literally the next day and install and get everything taken care of out of the way and so we could get it taken care of. Because if not, the guest is upset. They're like, hey, you said we could do laundry here. And that was one thing we specifically asked for. And it doesn't even work. And you're like, oh boy, you see where this is going? And so having the right team, they come in and people understand things break. And so they're understanding. But then they see me call someone, get a new one in there, get it ordered and set up. The next day, they're like, wow, cool. This guy, yeah, this is a good host. And boom, 5-star review. Okay, so the right team and the right seat. So we have the trifecta, the three people, the cleaner, the handyman, and the quality control person. Okay. That's really your key and your secret to the right operational team. I'm telling you right now, if you have those three, and this quality person needs to be somebody who can go out to the property for whatever reason, almost at any point in time to check in on things if you need it, because there will be things. I was thinking it's crazy. I had a smoke alarm that the batteries were dead or dying, and it was like really high in like an obscure place. We just like missed it because it was like in a corner of we didn't even know it existed. Okay, because it was really high up in the ceiling and it was like in a really interesting corner. And it just started going off, and it was because the batteries were dying. And the guest was like, "Hey, like we can't." And I was like, "Oh, just like take it down." And then they're like, "No, you don't understand. It's like 15 feet in the air." And I'm like, "Cool, we don't have a ladder. What do we do?" And so I call him a quality person. Yeah, I'll go over there and take care of it. Brings the ladder, takes care of it, takes it down, puts it back, changes the batteries, puts it back. Boom, problem solved. They like no other issues. Like so having that go-to person because you're not going to be there, it's peace of mind. That's how you pull this off. That's how you do it. Last piece of advice I want to give you as we're wrapping up here. Understand the value of Instacart. If you don't have that app, so Instacart, there might be other grocery store apps, but Instacart is what I use. If a guest's like, hey, we're out, sometimes things are going to be missed. Okay. Sometimes things break. Or sometimes the guest asks for something really random and you have to send something. So Amazon and Instacart are the two apps you need to have installed on your phone. So if something breaks, something's missing, they need some sort of supplies, they used all your toilet paper and you're trying to take care of them, use Instacart. I use Instacart all the time for my properties. Boom, no problem, no foul. Sometimes we can get little gifts or hey, we've got your bottle of wine in there. And Instacart brings it to them. It's great. It's a valuable resource and a tool. Amazon, obviously, we're out of if some reason they're out of towels and there's none in the spare closet or something like that. You've got these different avenues for every extreme scenario where you can get people taken care of in a respectable amount of time, as quickly as possible within 24 hours. And people recognize that. And if you have that all planned out, it's so easy to buy out of state, guys. It's really not that hard. But learn those things. Having the right team and the right resources available is how you pull it off and how you get that peace of mind, because that's really what you're going for. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like I said, in the next episode, I'm bringing in a special guest, one of our clients. She buys all over the country. And she's going to break down her ways of actually doing the operations and systems for running a successful short-term rentals out of state from where she lives in Chicago. She's also a marketing expert as well. And so listen to her tips on marketing too, because she's bringing some really interesting and new ideas that I haven't thought of. So stay tuned. Be sure to pay attention to that episode as it drops out on Thursday. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And thank you for being one of my listeners again. It really means the world to me. And if you haven't left me a review yet, please do so. Love those 5-star reviews. I actually read them all the time before I go to bed. I'm just kidding. I don't do that. But I do read them occasionally. So thank you so much again. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you on the next one.